各位弟兄姐妹，大家平安！欢迎大家来参加今天早上的主日聚会。不管你是在线上还是在现场，我们都预备我们的心，也来敬拜赞美我们的主。我们一起起立，我们来念以下这段经文，是在雅各书的2章1到3节。请，我是沙伦的玫瑰花，是谷中的百合花。我的佳偶在女子中，好像百合花在荆棘内。我的良人在男子中，如同苹果树在树林中。我欢欢喜喜坐在他的荫下，尝他果子的滋味，觉得甘甜。虽然雅各在字面上他是歌颂男女间的爱情，不过在属灵的意义上面，他提醒我们跟神的关系就如同佳偶跟他良人一样这样的亲密。我们用欢喜的心来唱以下这首诗歌《谷中的百合花》。大声一点。
有主神的万有，万人中救主是我最好邻友。恩主是谷中百合花，我唯一需要它，它能洗净我，使我洁白无瑕。悲伤是他来解忧，患难是他保佑，一切忧虑却放在他肩头。主是晨星灿烂光华，是谷中百合花，万人中救主最美好，我爱他。恩主带走一切忧愁，将我悲伤担当，当我受试探时，他是我力量。我要尽心尽力爱他，毁掉一切偶像，他有能力保守我，为他而活。纵然世界弃绝我，撒旦来试探我，只靠耶稣能过得胜生活。主是晨星灿烂光华，是谷中百合花，万人中救主最美好，我爱他。
主是晨星灿烂光华，是谷中的百合花。我们一起说阿们。主是百中的百合花，再来。
恩主永不把我舍弃，我主何等仁慈，我要忠诚信靠遵行主意志。虽有烈火绕我身旁，人造何时不慌，主赐吗哪会让我灵得健壮。那日在天见主面，享受主爱甘甜，有快乐江河长流至永年。主是晨星灿烂光华，是谷中百合花，万人中救主最美好，我爱他。那日在天见主面，享受主爱甘甜，有快乐江河长流至永年。主是晨星灿烂光华，是谷中百合花，万人中救主最美好，我爱他。万人中救主最美好，我爱他。万人中救主最美好，我爱他。
这是我们谷中的百合花。我们用掌声将荣耀归给我们在天上的父神，他是那个晨星灿烂光华，他是谷中的百合花。我们要感谢他，我们感谢他直到永永远远。我们下一首诗歌是我愿触动你心弦。弟兄姐妹好不好？我们在唱这个诗歌的时候，我们不妨想象一下，好像主耶稣在这个时候就坐在我们的身边，我们用心深情地对他来唱这个诗歌。我愿触动神的心弦。
每当我来到主你宝座前，我心我灵向你夫妇敬拜，再次将主权交托全能神，恳求你心意向我显明。每当我来到主你宝座前，我心我灵向你夫妇敬拜，再次将主权 交托全能神，恳求你心意向我显明。
要触动神的心弦，
我愿触动你心弦，真心讨你喜悦。我要举起双手，降服于你，贴近你的胸怀。我愿触动你心弦，真心讨你喜悦。握住我的手，就夺我心意，完全属于你。每当我来到主你宝座前，我心我灵向你匍匐敬拜。
像耶稣在这个时候，他就坐在我们的身边。
交托全能神，
我们用心，我们深情的对他唱，
心意向我显明，
要触动他的心弦。
我愿触动你心弦，全心讨你喜悦。我要举起双手，降服于你，贴近你的胸怀。我愿触动你心弦，全心讨你喜悦。握住我的手，就夺我心意，完全属于你。握住我的手，就夺我心意，完全属于你。
一起来祷告。天父神，谢谢你是这样的爱我们，虽然我们是这样的不配，我们常常的偏行己路，又自以为是，但就求上帝你夺走我们的心意，除去我的老我，让我们能够遵循你的旨意，能够单单的向你。主要就如同这个诗歌所说，你是那无价之宝，你的十架就是无价之宝。求你的宝血再一次的洁净我们，使我们能够坦然无惧的来到你的面前。我们弟兄姐妹身体有疾病的，求你来医治；心灵受创伤的，求你来复原。谢谢你与我们同在，听我们的祷告。我们感谢祷告，不配是奉耶稣基督的圣名祈求。我们唱一下这首诗歌《无价之宝》。
我的名字刻画在你心中，我的脸孔深印在你眼中，不是因为我势力才能，乃是因着你奇妙宽容恩典。虽然有时我会跌倒软弱，你却一直包容不放弃我，用你慈爱紧紧地拥抱我，赞美你宝贵奇妙的爱。一切尊贵荣耀，主你的十架是无价之宝，你是我尊贵的主耶稣。 我用你慈爱紧紧地拥抱，我赞美你宝贵奇妙答案。唯有你配得所有的赞美，一切尊贵荣耀，主你的施加是无价之宝，你是我尊贵的主，唯有你配得所有的赞美，一切尊贵荣耀，主你的施加是无价之宝，你是我尊贵的主，耶
唯有你配得所有的赞美，也唯有你配得一切的尊贵荣耀。你的十架是无价之宝，求你宝血再一次的洁净我们，让我们能够坦然无惧来到你面前，来支取你的能力，来领受你的大爱，来尊崇颂扬你的名。更深的来唱。
你配得所有的赞美，
想象神在这个时候就在我们的旁边，
一切尊
他欢喜的看我们在他面前敬拜，我们高举双手在他面前敬拜他。神在这个时候就在会堂当中与我们同在。
你是我尊贵的主，哦，你配得所有的赞美，一切尊贵荣耀，主你的施加是无价之宝，你是我尊贵的主，耶稣，你是我尊贵的主，耶稣。
是的，主，你是我尊贵的主耶稣，你的十架是我们无价之宝。若不是你在十字架上为我们舍命，我们没有今生，也没有永恒的盼望，我们连明天都不知道会如何。但是感谢你，感谢你，你从高天来到地上，为我们舍命，成就了救恩，而且不只是把我们的灵魂接到永恒，在今生的每一天、每一分钟，你都看顾我们。谢谢你，谢谢你，谢谢你让诗歌创作者写这么棒的诗歌，谢谢你让邦宁弟兄选择了这首诗歌。在今天的圣餐主日，我们要再一次的来思想，你是我们的无价之宝。弟兄姐妹可以轻轻的坐下，我们以下是圣餐的仪式。让我们在这段时间中，在这个诗歌的旋律当中，我们再一次向主说：主，谢谢你，谢谢你，谢谢你。我们有1-2分钟的时间向主感谢，然后我们再进行分饼。主啊，谢谢你，主啊，谢谢你，谢谢你，再一次谢谢你。 我们的音乐可以继续，但请把我的投影片放出来，我们的圣餐投影片。大家可以继续的向主感恩。我来读这段经文。经文说：“我当日传给你们的，原是从主领受的，就是主耶稣被卖的那一夜，拿起饼来，祝谢了，就拨开说：这是我的身体，为你们舍的，你们应当如此行，为的是纪念我。饭后，也照样拿起杯来说：这杯是用我的血所立的新约，你们每逢喝的时候，要如此行，为的是纪念我。你们每逢吃这饼喝这杯，是表明主的死，只等到他来。所以无论何人不按理吃主的饼喝主的杯，就是干犯主的身主的血了。人应当自己省察，然后吃这饼喝这杯。因为人吃喝若不分辨是主的身体，就是吃喝自己的罪了。我们感谢主，主啊，我们感谢你，我们感谢你，我们本当在我们的还活着的时候，天天向你献上感恩。主啊，请原谅我们，我们常常是忙着为自己的需要来祈求，却是少了回顾你在我们生命中所做这样大事。谢谢你，谢谢你，谢谢你借着圣餐，让我们再一次回到这个感恩当中。谢谢你使我们有永恒的盼望跟今生的福分。谢谢你。按照圣经的教导，我们在领圣餐的时候需要自己省察。弟兄姐妹可以省察你是不是有得罪神得罪人的地方，若是有的话，若是能够向主认罪，就赶快认罪；若是需要有什么行动，需要立志去做这样的行动。等一下分饼的时候，请弟兄姐妹把手张开，让我们的服侍同工把饼放在你的手中，饼请由服侍同工递给你，但是杯子就可以自取。这是主耶稣的身体为你我舍的，主耶稣的身体为你我舍的。在线上观看直播的弟兄姐妹，你们预备好了吗？可以跟我们一起来同领，这是主的身体，这是主的身体。好，我们就一起来领受主耶稣的身体。饭后，我主耶稣又拿起杯来祝谢了，说：“这血是我与你们所立的新约，你要如此行，为的是纪念我。”感谢神，这是一个约，这个约是神要永远的救赎我们，圣灵永远与我们同在，带领我们。我们继续向神感恩。请帮我把投影片换到下一页，谢谢。 这是主的宝血，为你我而流出。谢谢主。我们一起领受主的宝血。请我们的招待同工来协助。在这里，我也奉主耶稣基督的名宣告，所有我们在神面前的亏欠，因着我们真诚的向主认罪，以及愿意去与人和好，在主面前都蒙赦免了，都蒙赦免了。我们乃是还原成一个清洁的心，可以坦然的来见主。奉主的名宣告这样的赦免在众弟兄姐妹的生命中。我们一边继续唱这个诗歌，我们可以跟着音乐来唱这首诗歌。我们另外请我们的服侍同工到前面来。等一下，我们有一段祷告的时间。现场的弟兄姐妹，如果你有任何你觉得需要祷告的事情，你就可以起立包括身体、心灵软弱，或是各样的需要，你可以起来。我们在主的赦罪的恩典当中，也在主的大能当中。既然我们已经存着一个清洁的心，我相信神的祝福能力会能够通畅的在你的里面。我们就请同工来为你祷告，让你得到神的祝福与帮助。我们的同工会为你的额头抹油。如果你觉得不希望被接触的话，在他为你抹油之前，请你先跟他说明一下他就不会接触你。但如果你没有说的话，他就会为你的额头抹油。如果弟兄姐妹你有任何需要，可以站起来。我们的音乐可以稍微小声一点，谢谢。好，弟兄姐妹如果有需要祷告，请站起来。请问燕婆现在的情况怎么样？可以正常上讲。等一下，我的声音先关掉，音乐可以继续，我的声音关掉。 我们可以轻轻的一起来唱这个副歌。因着十字架终结的赦免，因着十字架，因着十字架，因着十字架，尽我的洁净，因着十字架，因着十平安，因着十字架，终罪的赦免，因着十字架，因着十字架，因着十字架，尽我的洁净，因着十字架，尽我的洁净，因着十字架。主，我们再一次向你献上感谢，谢谢你，谢谢你整全的救恩，包括灵魂的救赎与身体心灵的医治，你都赐给我们了。谢谢你，我要奉你的名支取这样的应许，因你受的鞭伤，我们得医治；因你受的刑罚，我们得平安。主啊，你把医治跟平安都加给众弟兄姐妹，特别我们已知有一些甚至在比较严重疾病困扰当中的弟兄姐妹，主你的医治与平安要加给他们，加给他自己跟他的家人。谢谢你，也不只是身体的疾病，主也包括那些在心灵疾病困扰中的，我也奉主的名要支取这样的应许，你的医治、你的平安都要临到。什么活在你所应许的那个更丰盛的生命里面？你应许我们来，你来不是只是叫我们得生命而已，固然这已经非常宝贵了，我们得到永恒的生命已经非常宝贵，但是你说不只是这样，不是只是拿到天堂的门票，而且还要有整全的祝福，要得的更丰盛。你把那更丰盛的生命赐给我们，谢谢你，谢谢你，谢谢你是这样的爱我们。这样祷告祝福，奉耶稣的名，阿们。另外我有一个感动，我不晓得刚才的祷告是为现场的会众，但是我猜想圣灵也在看直播的弟兄姐妹，在你的身体中也有一些作为。我特别有一个感动，就是在我们弟兄姐妹当中，是不是有神经方面的毛病、神经上面的问题，或者是因为被压迫而造成神经酸麻或者其他的原因？我知道敏雄有我刚才特别有个感动，神要特别在最近会在这方面有恩典，神经方面的问题会有明显的改善。奉主的名祝福这样的疾病的弟兄姐妹能够脱离这样的痛苦。奉耶稣的名，阿们。好，我们有一些事情要报告。好，谢谢。好，抱歉，我们还要祷告哈。我们继续祷告。我们刚才为现场只为了一些部分的事情祷告，但我想我们还是继续，我们众人一起不是只是服侍同工，我们众人一起来为我们所知道教会的弟兄姐妹的状况来祷告。我们知道有人身体软弱，有人心灵软弱，有人是在因为新冠肺炎造成整个职场的变换，有的是在财务上面有需要。那除了这些，还有的是在人际关系上面等等，有各样的需要。 我们就来为我们弟兄姐妹来祷告。如果你知道有谁，你就提名为他祷告；如果你不清楚是谁，那么就综合性的来祷告。我们求主看顾这些弟兄姐妹，在这样的情况中，仍然能够连接于神，并且充满喜乐。好，我们一起来宣告下面的经文，一起来：大山可以挪开，小山可以迁移，但我的慈爱必不离开你，我平安的约也不迁移。这是连续你的耶和华说的。我来了，是要叫人得生命，并且得的更丰盛。好，我们就一起来开口，来为我们的弟兄姐妹的需要来祷告。主要我们恭敬的把我们的弟兄姐妹交在你的手中。我们知道我们弟兄姐妹当中有人在对抗癌症，主要也知道我们的弟兄姐妹有人在心灵忧郁的状况当中。我们也知道我们的弟兄姐妹有一些是面临职场上面极大的这个完全不一样的变换，也有弟兄姐妹在跟人的关系上面正遇到障碍困难。主要还有其他我们所不知道的状况，有的是在职场中有极大的不适应，有的是可能在前方的道路上面正在迷茫。主要还有其他我们所不知道的各样的状况。主要这些都是你的孩子天父，这些都是你所爱的，每一个人的一生都是你所乐意带领的。我们相信你要伸手引导他们。主要谢谢你，因为大山可以挪开，小山都可以迁移，但是你的慈爱是永不改变的，必不离开的。这是连续我们的耶和华说的：神啊，你乃是良善的，你要看顾你的孩子，你要引导我们。谢谢你，主啊，我们知道你虽然容许我们暂时一时在祸患中，但至终必有平安，因为你向我们所怀的意念是赐平安的意念，不是降灾祸的意念，要叫我们末后有指望。谢谢你，谢谢你。我奉主的名宣告，我们所知道所已知的一切在各样问题当中的弟兄姐妹，都因着得着神的恩典，能够度过这个过程，而且不只是仅仅度过，是得胜有余，在过程中还能够有欢笑、有喜乐、有各样的满足感、幸福感在他们的心中。奉主的名祝福他们，有许多美好的事围绕在他们周围，以至于困难看起来是很小的，但是喜乐却是很大的。你的祝福看起来是很大的，环境的威胁困扰看起来是很小的。那寒冷都离开他们，但是你的温暖拥抱他们。这样祝福奉耶稣的名，阿们。好，今天是父亲节，我们要特别为父亲们祷告。我们希望父亲们成为妻子的遮盖，成为子女的榜样。我们来读下面的2处经文，一起来。你们做丈夫的要爱你们的妻子，正如基督爱教会，为教会舍己。你们做父亲的不要惹儿女的气，只要照着主的教训和警戒养育他们。好，我们就一起来为父亲祷告。来，所有做父亲的我们为他们祷告。那么最后，请陈建弟兄带领我们做结束祷告。
神虽然今天是地上的父亲节，但是你也是我们的阿爸天父。
Amen。
我们要对你说父亲节快乐。
Amen。是的，是的，
是的，神，我们真的是你已经为我们父亲做了一个最好的榜样。神，你真的是爱我们到一个地步，你真的是舍了你自己的独生爱子来救拔我们。神，你真的是在远远的地方就看着我们。就动了慈心，就跑过来抱着我们颈项，愿意我们亲嘴。是的，神，你是这样的爱我们。
是
神，我们在这时候真的是为天下的父亲，特别是我们教会的父亲们向主求神，你真的祝福他们手上的工作，祝福他们在家庭里面的生活，成为儿女的荣耀。神，你真的是在有些父亲在工作上，在家庭里面有些困难的，神你也真的是要亲自与他们同在。主，你也真的是要祝福他们，真的是从救拔，真的是从谷底可以真的是升上来。神，你真的是求你真的是祝福我们每一个在这里的父亲。神，因为你就是我们的父亲，你爱我们。我也祝福所有父亲节快乐。这样祷告祈求，奉主耶稣名求。
阿们，阿们。好，我们有一些事情要报告。我们过去实体聚会的第一个报告都是欢迎新朋友哈，我忘了放上去了，因为太久没有实体聚会了。今天在我们当中有没有第一次来的弟兄姐妹呢？有没有？我们知道后面那位弟兄是上一次就有来过了。Could you tell us your name? 就大卫的先知拿单。Nathan. Welcome, welcome. Be seated. Thank you. 好，欢迎欢迎 ，Welcome, welcome. 好，那么其他都是我们的这个多年老友了，是吗？我们就彼此微笑打招呼一下说见到实体聚会见到你真好，感谢主。好，我们这个仍然重述我们主日恢复实体聚会了。主会堂上限是50人，儿主是暂停实体聚会，等待我们的属经校长进一步通知。小组呢，依照各小组长的安排如果要来教会聚会是容许的是合法的，没有问题，可以到教会来聚会。祷告会呢，我们发现线上聚会更多人可以更方便的参加，所以我们会继续维持祷告会的线上进行。未来也许我们也会考虑恢复实体聚会，不过目前线上聚会圣灵的同在跟恩典也相当的多所以因为线上聚会很方便，所以鼓励弟兄姐妹每个礼拜二的晚上8点到9点来参加我们的线上祷告会如果当然我想有些弟兄姐妹可能你工作比较忙碌，你也不一定能够礼拜二晚上，或者是有别的事情可能要照顾亲人等等，但如果可以的话还有早上，我想7点半到8点，有的时候正在交通时间。但我鼓励你，即使你不能够全程的参与，你至少可以打开手机，在 LINE 里面进入我们的线上祷告会群组，可以聆听别人的祷告或者即使你听的是有一搭没一搭，因为你可能有的心思在忙别的事情，但是我相信圣灵会在你的灵里面工作，让你得到力量。所以鼓励你来参加线上祷告会，即使你不能发言、不能祷告，甚至不能全程参与也没有关系，鼓励你来我相信圣灵会与你同在，圣灵会在你的灵里面做一些事情。好，再来鼓励弟兄姐妹继续填答速读圣经我们现在进入新约比较容易的地方所以鼓励大家那本月我们要开始恢复兑换奖品了，所以请大家赶快把握机会好，另外呢，教会准备了父亲节的礼物所有已婚的弟兄都可以领取。那么之前的母亲节礼物，因为有些人在那一周呢，因为回去探望母亲没有在新竹没有领到，也都可以领取请在聚会完毕的时候呢，父亲节礼物在招待桌领取，然后母亲节礼物呢到办公室领取。好 ，OK， 好，我们报告到这里。今天我们要来看，今天不是我讲到，我们要看一段影片 就是 Gary Ezell 牧师，我觉得他非常非常棒，在教养孩童品格里面的一堂课叫做《父亲的责任》，我每一次看都觉得很亏欠、很感动但今天再一次又是我重新立志的时候了好，我们可以把前面的灯关一下包括可能乐手区的灯也关一下。
You want to play tetherball or kickball afterwards? Tetherball. Okay, that's great. Did you see that new doll? Yeah, and I really want to get it. So do I. But I don't know how I'm going to get the money for it.
No, I was really disappointed in the game last night. Man, they played awful.
Well, I think it'll be fun if I ever get to have her. What's that? Oh, it's just a note from my dad. Are you in trouble or something? No, he just hopes that I have a good day. Is that all? Well, that's kind of personal. I wish my dad would write me a note. Well, maybe he will. Maybe he will.
And welcome to a very special session of Growing Kids God's Way. In this particular session, I'm going to be talking to you dads about the Father's Mandate. Honey, the Father's Mandate, the central theme of it has to do with the issue of trust in a relationship. Let's talk about it.
Okay, it does, and how we build that trust, well, both, and I say we because moms are involved as well, as although Gary is going to address most of his comments to dads, that doesn't get us as moms off the hook because we too are in the process of building a trusting relationship with our children. And for those of you that are attending as single parents, this could be a rather difficult lesson to listen to because you're thinking, well, my children don't have a dad in the home. What's going to happen with them? And I want to encourage you to please remember that God is the father to the fatherless. And there's Absolutely. A special measure of grace that I believe he brings into your home to compensate for the lack of dad being there. And also, I mean, truly, the principles are things that even as moms, we are encouraged to do with our children.
The Bible teaches that moms are helpmates. Wives are the helpmates. And so there are going to be some practical things that moms, we're going to need your help to help direct your husband, to motivate them and to encourage them in some of the practical areas. To speak about trust, let me take you back to an episode that happened in our lives not too long ago when our daughter Jennifer brought home her two little girls. They were feverish, and Jennifer was just checking in with Nurse Anne Marie to see what she should do. As Caitlin, the oldest sister, came wobbling through the house, she went immediately to find Grandma in her office. But Kara, the 19-month-old, came over to me. She found Grandpa in the rocking chair reading, and she just said one word to me, gentlemen. She said, up. And as she put her little hands up, I took her, put her on my lap, and I just began to cuddle with that little girl. And I felt her feverish little face, and I began to stroke her. And before I knew it, this little girl had fallen asleep in my lap. And then I began to think back, how many years has it been? 25, 26 years since I held my own children in that same tender way. And I also thought about this particular lesson, this particular teaching, because I realized that in that moment, little Kara trusted me absolutely. There was no question, there was no doubt about where she could find love. And I also realized in that moment that that type of trust, that unquestionable trust, that trust that's void of doubt, will someday be replaced with a knowledgeable trust. A knowledgeable trust simply means that the day will come when our children, my children, your children, our grandchildren, will learn whether or not we are really trustworthy. How about it, men? Are you trustworthy? You know, we're going to talk about that very issue, the father's mandate. This is the longest of all of our sessions. There will be no wrap-up. It's important that you pay close attention, because what ends up coming out of this lesson could change the course of your entire family. Join us in the father's mandate. I want to welcome you folks back to a very special session of Growing Kids God's Way. It is special in that my energies will be directed towards you dads and your role as a leader, coach, shepherd of the family. How well are you doing in those areas? Maybe a better question that should be asked is, how do you measure your performance in those areas? You know, we live in a day and an age when good fathering is measured by the quality and quantity of time that we direct towards our children. Let me ask you, if you had to pick between the two, which one would you say represents the fullness of biblical intent? Would you be the quality time dad, or would you be the quantity time dad? How about neither? You see, the practice of quality and quantity time as it relates to the development of human relationships, especially a father's relationship with his children, is a cultural concept. It's not a biblical one. It's a concept that is based on time allocation first, relationship building second. It puts our children's needs subject to time rather than time subject to their needs. Now listen, spending quality and quantity time with our children, of course, is very important. It's not a bad thing that we do that. But obviously, a father's relationship with his children is dependent on time. But spending quality and quantity time with our children is not the goal. It's only the means to take us to our goal. That's an important distinction that you need to understand, dads. Quality and quantity time, spending time with our kids, is not the goal. It is only the vehicle. It is only the means that's going to get us to our goal. You see, some fathers will take their sons and daughters for a walk, and they feel that they have fulfilled their fatherly obligation for the week. But that's not the case. It is not the quality and quantity of time during the walk that bears importance, but rather the quality and quantity of relationship that comes out of the walk. Time is not the primary issue. Relationship is the issue. Relationship is what you must keep before you. But time is often a substitute for relationship. It's a substitute, one that is used often to measure how well we really are doing. What we dads need to do, what you men need to do, is put away your measuring stick of quality and quantity time and ask yourself this one question. Do your children, do my children, trust me? That's really the question. Do they trust me? Do they seek out my counsel? Do they ask me for my advice? Or is it always mom that they go to? Do you notice any trends here? Are they always going to someone else? Or will they come to dad? You see, trust is the foundation on which the parent-child relationship is built, and building a trusting relationship with our children should be a father's first consideration, with time only playing a supportive role. The fact is, gentlemen, the quality and quantity of trust that our children have in us is the only legitimate benchmark measuring our relationship with them. You want a real measurement? It's not the amount of time you spent with them. It's not the quality of time you spend with them. The real measurement of where you are right now with your children as they are growing, especially as they're growing up through the middle years, right into the teen years, is, do your children trust you? That is the only legitimate benchmark measuring your relationship. Gentlemen, when it comes to your future relationship with your children, the bottom line is going to be this. If a child cannot absolutely trust his dad more than his peers, ultimately, the frightening reality is his peers will shape his destiny, not dad. And I don't think that you men want that. So in this session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you with what I call the 8 non-negotiables for building a trusting relationship with your kids. It's very practical. This is not a profoundly theological presentation, because I think you already have the theology. But what it is very, very practical. 8 things fathers need to be actively doing. And just like teenage rebellion, which doesn't happen overnight, building a trusting relationship with your children doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with this very first mandate. Mandate number 1. Fathers must cultivate a sense of family identity. That's you, dads. You men. You need to be the ones cultivating a sense of family identity. What is family identity? This means cultivating a place to belong. Are you doing that with your kids? Are you cultivating a place to belong for your children? That sense, more than the home that you provided, more than the room, more than all the things that's associated with their familiarity with their room. More than all of that. See, family identity is the mutual acceptance of who we are. Family identity is based on trust and acceptance of each family member with a growing sense of loyalty to the family as a unit. What are the marks of your family identity? What sets you people apart? What draws your children to you? Take your last name, for example. Do you realize how profound your last name is in the life of your child? Do you realize that your last name represents a belief system to the world? It represents a faith system. Our last name, Ezzo, it represents a belief system. And belonging to our family was never made an option for our children. It was a mandate. Because we are our family. We are the product of God's masterful genius. We are family. And fathers, you are the power brokers of this whole thing. You're the ones who can build that attitude into the lives of each one of your children, into the lives of the family as a unit. Now, how do you do that? What are some of the practical ways that you guys can build family identity? Well, number 1, it's a simple thing. I don't know how often you do this, though. Number 1, verbally encourage your children by telling them what a great family you have. You know, when you're driving down the road and you're with the family, come out with it once in a while, men. You know what? This is a great family. You kids have such a great mom. I'm so excited to be in this family. Verbalize your interest. Verbalize to them your commitment to them. Listen, gentlemen, they need to hear it from you. They need to hear it out of your own heart. You need to verbalize your commitment. You know why? Because when dad is excited about the family, then the children get excited about the family. Silence too often communicates apathy. That's why just saying it once in a while, this is a great family. I love you, children. I'm so thankful to the Lord that we are together as a family. Verbalize it. Say it. Because they will get excited knowing that dad is excited. Another thing that we want to encourage you that will help build family identity is know where you're going with your identity. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years as a family, with your sons, with your daughters? Amory and I used to do something very risky with our children when they were starting at 12 and 13 years of age. When we were beginning the ministry and we were teaching classes, and sometimes the classes got up to 600 parents, so they weren't small classes. There would be one session, though, towards the end of our teaching that we would bring in our daughters. And we would take Amy and Jenny, we would put them on 2 stools, put a lapel mic on each child. And then we would tell our audience of parents that we were going to leave for 2 hours. And you can ask Amy and Jenny any question you want to ask them about our family. You could ask them how wonderful their dad is or how maybe not so wonderful their dad is. How fair we are or unfair. When does your mother get upset with your dad? You could ask our children anything you want. We are leaving. And the reason why we did that, ladies and gentlemen, is because we wanted those children to be a tangible illustration to those young mothers and fathers so that they will be thinking for the future. That wherever you may be, whether your children are standing in front of 2 people, 200 or 2,000, you will know with confidence that your children are going to represent your family and that you could be proud of it because of what you have done. And of course, as a pastor, you know that is very risky. That is a very risky thing to put your children up in front of so many parents because the Bible teaches if I don't have my house in order, I'm out of business. They could have one bad night and my ministry could be shot the next day, right? I remember the one question, I got to share this with you, the one question that keeps coming back when they were being queried on a number of different issues. A woman stood up and said, Amy, I want you to answer this for you and Jenny. and I want to get a direct answer from you. She said, Amy, have you ever had a conversation with your mom and dad about sex? Now I was listening to the tape the next day, and I turned it off because I was hoping Anne-Marie did her job, because I didn't say anything to these girls. And so I turned the tape back on to hear Amy say this. She said, no, Jenny and I believe our mom and dad know everything they need to know about that subject. There's nothing more we want to tell them. So, you know, gentlemen, you've got to be goal-oriented. You've got to be thinking, where do you want to be? Are you guys thinking about it? Are you forming a family identity that's so beautiful, that is so tight, that in a few years you're going to be able to put your children up there? Not to show them off to the world and say, look at me, but to show them to the world so the world can look at him. That's family identity, what we are all about. Let me give you mandate number 2. If a father's going to build a trusting relationship with his children, then there must be an ongoing demonstration of love for his wife. I mean, we covered that just a couple of sessions ago. We touched on it in love languages. But understand this, gentlemen. The marriage relationship is a stage upon which the exercise of trust is verified before an audience of watching eyes and little hearts. And what they see is going to produce an expectation level of trust. It's going to define trust in you. After all, how much trust can I have in a father that doesn't have time to spend with my mom? Or how much trust can I have in a father that talks harshly to my mother or meanly to my mom? Or how much trust can I have in a father that can never spend time with her? You will be nullifying all of the good things that you are doing with your children if you are not first doing the same and more with your wife. Gentlemen, if you're going to build trust, you're going to have to make sure that that husband-wife relationship remains a priority. I say this to you, men. If you really love your children, we have been saying this from the time we started teaching. If you really love your children, then give them the gift of confidence and security. Show them how much you love each other. Show them how much you love their mom. If you love them, give them that gift. Love mom. Duty number 3. Fathers need to understand and respect their children's private world. Respect your children's private world. You know, folks, we all live in 3 worlds. All of us, every one of us. We all have a public world. And in a truest sense, that's where we are right now. We're in our public world. We know each other fairly well. We've come together. We're developing relationships even in this class. But we are still in our public world. We all have a personal world. Now that personal world, that's where we live at home. That's where our friends are. That's where we feel comfortable. We could throw on the sweatshirt and we really don't care what our hair looks like. That's the personal world we all live in. But every one of us has a private world. But the private world is on the inside, not on the outside. And your children have a private world that is on the inside. You see, the difficulty with the private world on the inside, the only way we as moms and dads have access is that we have to be invited in by our children. There is a phenomena that is called the open window phenomena. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. It happens to children maybe when you're taking a walk. Or maybe it's nighttime and their little bodies are racked with tiredness and you put them in bed. I remember the one time that Anne-Marie put Jennifer down and I put Amy down and just saying goodnight. And I was just stroking her back as a little girl laying in bed. And I said, "How you doing, Amy? Did you have a good day?" And then all of a sudden, without any warning, that little girl laying there opened up the window of her heart right here. And in a sense, she invited me in. She says, "Daddy, come on in. I want to show you something." And she began to share with me. She said, "Daddy, do you think I'm pretty?" And I said, "Well, Amy, of course I think you're pretty." She says, "Well, do you think anyone else thinks I'm pretty?" I said, "Your mother thinks you're pretty. That's a second person. Now why are you asking?" And then she began, "Well, there was a boy in the park today, and he said to me." And what she was doing is that inside that little girl, inside her private little world, things were happening. And what she did is gave me a very special privilege of, come on in. Now, when I went in, I knew enough not to try to rearrange everything that I saw. I knew that just listen. You see, the problem we dads have is we hear these things and we want to fix it. We want to go in and we want to rearrange the whole furniture. Now, Amy, why are you talking about boys? You are too young to be talking about boys. You get that right out of your mind. Don't be thinking. That's not the time to do it. It's our job to listen, gentlemen, to be there. So often, our children are opening up the little windows of their heart and they're saying, Daddy, come on in. And what we say back to them is, we don't have time. We send back the busy signals, and what ends up happening is that our children realize, my dad is not someone I can share the treasures of my life with. You know what, gentlemen? You never know. You never know when the open window is going to come, when you're going to say or do something, or maybe not do something, that is going to have a profound impact on your child's life. I remember the night before Amy's wedding, the first daughter that got married. We were, after the rehearsal, after everyone has gone home, it was just the four of us. And we were just reminiscing life. We were reminiscing growing up together, the four of us. And Amy came and she said, Dad, do you remember the time when I gave you my memory? I said, your memory? She said, yeah, remember the time I gave you my memory? And I gave it to you on a blue piece of paper. And I said, well, help me remember. She says, Dad, when I was a little girl. And then I began to think back, years ago. There was a little girl on a Saturday morning with pigtails. And she came running in, and she said, Daddy, would you hold my memory? And she handed me a blue piece of paper. And I took it, and I said, Amy, this is your memory. She said, Dad, that's my memory. Would you hold it for me? I said, okay, figuring she gets it from her mother's side. I said, can I fold it and put it in my pocket? She says, yeah, that's okay. So I did. I put it in my pocket. Said, okay, I have it. She went back out. About an hour later, she came in and says, Daddy, do you have my memory? Oh, yeah, I'm glad I didn't change my shirt. Yeah, here it is, honey. And I gave her the blue piece of paper back. She went back out. I forgot. For almost 14 years, I forgot about that. Now, the night before her wedding, she brings it up to me. She says, do you remember the day I gave you my memory? And I said, Amy, I do. What was that all about? She said, I don't know. But she says, I do remember that was the day I really believed I could trust you, Daddy, with anything. And I say to you, gentlemen, you never know. You never know. That silly little thing that they're going to do, you never know how profound it's going to be. You see, a trusting relationship is established in the secret chambers of the heart. And, gentlemen, it can be destroyed there also. Fathers need to learn how to respect their child's private world. Duty number 4, fathers must give their children the freedom to fail. Wow. That sounds un-American and certainly sounds unmanly. You know what? One thing we've noticed, Americans love success. They just hate successful people. As a result, we collectively love winning so much that I think that we have lost an honest perspective and appreciation for what we can learn from losing. What a crippling thing to a young creative mind not to have the freedom to fail in front of Dad. Your children, gentlemen, need to be assured that you view their failure as the first step to success. Let me qualify that. Failure with effort is acceptable. Failure without effort is unacceptable. But fathers, you must look at failure with an eye to the future. And that's difficult for us, we men, because we don't want failure. We don't want our kids failing. We want them coming first. But you have to understand there is a process. And if you really want them to be victorious, then let wisdom rule in the moments of failure. I can tell you honestly, when our children failed both in achievement and relationships, both Anne-Marie and I, we attempted to help them find the secret blessing. We knew in the truest sense as children, the probability is time was on their side. We would often say, do you realize, kids, the number of adults who have not learned the lessons that the Lord has allowed you to learn today? Do you realize how many people still in adulthood live foolishly because they lack the wisdom that you now possess as a result of this testing, this trial, this failure? Those were not words of condemnation or correction. Really, those words were meant to be encouraging. And we knew that our children were going to be tested again one day in the future. And then when they were tested, and when they faced it with wisdom, then failure was turned into victory. And when victory comes, Dad will be the one they remember. My dad taught me this. My dad showed me this. Imagine a child who's afraid to fail in front of Dad because he senses Dad's not going to be pleased, or Dad's not going to love me as much. Dad might not give me as much attention. We limit our children's potential when we send that message that failure is unacceptable in this house. Let me tell you, men, your kids are going to fail you. And they're going to fail you in moments when you least expect it, and then they're going to fail you in moments that are going to be most embarrassing. And it's really hard, but you got to make sure that you see their failure as the back door to success. We don't want to limit their potential. We don't want to create a condition within them where their natural spiritual giftedness and their natural talents are going to be squashed because they're afraid to exercise them, because I'd rather not exercise them than take a chance and fail in front of Dad. Now please note this last word of encouragement with this mandate. It's not the fear of failure that holds a child back so often. It's the fear of failing someone, and that someone is often Dad. I hope it's not you, men. I hope it's not you. I hope you do not hold your child back from being all that he or she can be because they fear failing and losing your love. Let me move on to duty number 5. Fathers need to be the encourager of the family. I love this one. Fathers need to be the encourager of the family. There's a big difference, men, between an encouraging remark and an encouraging dad. It is more than just a word now and then of praise, but it's your very presence, your smile, your expression that communicates encouragement. Fathers need to be the source of encouragement because encouragement builds trust. Here are some practical activities for encouraging fathers. I want you guys, if you haven't been doing this, I want you to start this right away. Start tomorrow. Number 1, school lunch boxes. You know when your child goes off to school, or maybe they're even homeschool, or they have a backpack, something. Gentlemen, here's what you need to do. You need to write a little note to your son or daughter and put it in the lunchbox, in the school pack. Just a little note. You moms can help with this. You moms, chase your husband around the house until he writes the note. Anne-Marie used to do this. She would tell me, you haven't written a note to your daughter in a couple of weeks. You need to write the note. And the note would be simple. Dear Jenny, hope you had a nice day in school. See you when you get home. Love, Dad. I would fold it, put it in her little lunchbox, hide it underneath her sandwich. And so when she got to school, when she was in the lunchroom and she was surrounded by her girlfriends, and she opened up her lunchbox or her paper bag, whatever it may be, she said, oh, what's this? Oh, look, it's a note. Well, look, it must be from Dad. The words are misspelled. They knew right away. The note. I love you. Now, think about this so I could get you to empathize a little. How many of you guys, you ladies, think about it, wish you had one love note from your dad? I'm not talking about the Christmas cards and the birthday cards. I'm talking about really just one note. And I'm saying to you fathers, look, this is so important. This is communicating trust. This is encouragement. I remember my associate, Dr. Robert Buckton, who we put some books together. He was so excited. Now, Robert and Gail had been teaching Growing Kids God's Way, but when their first son went to school, they couldn't wait to do the note writing, as I have just shared with you. And so when little Robbie went off to school, Bob had made sure that he put in his lunchbox a cute little note saying, we're excited about your first day. I want you to tell me all about it when you get home. Love, Dad. And so he waited all day as a dad. And the little guy came home, and Dad didn't say anything, but the son didn't say anything either. And so Bob thought, excitement of the first day. 2 days later, he writes another note and says, Dear Robbie, hope you have a great day in school. Love you, son. See you when you get home. I'm so proud of you. Love, Dad. Put in a lunchbox. Waited all day for the son to come home. Nothing. He tried it again the next week. Same type of love note. Just added a few more words. Signed it, Love, Dad. Hugs and kisses. Put in a lunchbox. Son came home, nothing. Bob was thinking, maybe it works for everyone else. It's not working for me. You know that, like 2 weeks when you're into school, you get to have that parent-teacher conference, and you get to go, and the teacher talks to you about your little guy. Well, Bob and Gail went to that parent-teachers conference, and all the other parents were there, and when they got done with the teacher said, and your son, little Robbie, he sits right over here, and you can go look at his papers. And so they drifted over to his little desk, and on his desk, plastered with clear tape, are 3 love notes from Dad, ever present in front of that child. And that's what I'm asking you guys to do. Change the life of your children by letting them know in writing that you love them. And send them letters too. Once a year, especially as your children grow older. Send them letters. You know, address, put a stamp on it, mail it. You know what? Letters from Aunt Margaret, letters from the old girlfriends, letters from everyone else. Gentlemen, get thrown out. Letters from Dad. They're too precious. They are never thrown out. They are put in the bottom drawer. And when the rainy day comes on the inside, when there's a love letter that will encourage, that letter will come out again. Also, I want you to think about the, as I mentioned earlier, the birthday cards and the Christmas cards. We got to a point in our relationship where I realized our kids, they know Mom loves them. So what Anne-Marie has done, and I'm going to recommend it for you guys, is Anne-Marie no longer signs the Christmas cards or the birthday cards, not even for the son-in-laws. I sign them because it's more meaningful. I'll sign them on behalf of Anne-Marie. I'll write the little note because I'm Dad. Children never question Mom's love. They only wonder, Dad, do you love me? So I want to send that note to them. We got a little letter here I want to read to you. This has to do with the note in the lunchbox. Let me read this to you. I'm writing Gary and Anne-Marie to thank you and testify to the truth you imparted during the last month's conference. I brought my husband to the seminar in hopes that he would be more willing to take a positive role in fathering if he heard things straight from you. A few days after we returned home, we were talking about fathers leaving notes for the child instead of Mom, something that I have been doing for a few months. My husband agreed to put a note in the lunchbox of our eldest boy, who now is 7 years old. The next morning, the note was written with instructions to place it in the box, which I did. It was just a simple note saying, hope you have a nice day at school. See you when you get home. Love, Dad. Upon our son's arrival home, he handed me his lunchbox, as usual. When I opened it, the note was there, still intact. He obviously hadn't seen it, so I said, you missed something in your lunchbox today. He took the note and read it, and then, before my eyes, my son broke down and he wept. I hugged him and I waited a few minutes. Then I asked, why are you crying? He replied, I didn't realize that Daddy loved me so much. How can I ever thank you enough for such a priceless moment in the life of our child? Now you see, ladies and gentlemen, the investment on this father's part was probably 30 seconds, but the impact of his thoughtfulness was a lifetime. And that's what I'm talking about. And one more sub-point on this mandate of encouragement. Gentlemen, make sure that you give your children the opportunity to prove themselves trustworthy. Let me share with you something out of my own past. When I was growing up, I loved fishing. I grew up on a great river, but I was always the little guy in the family, so I was never allowed to go to the river by myself. The standard orders were basically that I could go with my dad when he went, I can go with my older brothers when they went, I can go when the neighbors would go, but I could not go by myself. There was a storm, a May thunderstorm that came through our town in upstate New York, and ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand that after that storm cleared up, you know the freshness of the scent that is left from a storm in the springtime. From the river, could hear the fish calling me, beckoning me to come. And I just knew this would be a good time. I was 12 years old. And I waited for my father to get home, and I had everything ready just in case I would get a yes from him. And I saw the car come down the street, and he pulled in the driveway, and I didn't even let my father get out of the car. He said, Dad, could I go fishing? I know they're going to be biting. I'll be really careful. And my dad thought for the moment, and he said, all right. You can go fishing, but I'm going to give you 2 requirements that I want to make sure that you follow. Number 1, I don't want you by the river's banking because with the rain, the banking's going to be slippery. And number 2, I want you home before the sun sets. I was so excited. I said, Dad, I'll do anything you ask me. I gathered my stuff. I'll never forget because the fields were still wet. I crossed over the backyard, down into the field, over the flood wall, down to the river. It was a beautiful, beautiful evening. And I enjoyed myself, and I was catching fish. And I stayed there all evening, and then I saw the sun begin to set. And I remember the words of my father. And so I gathered everything. I got my tackle pole, the fish that I caught. I gathered everything up, back over the flood wall, through the field, up over into the backyard and into the garage. And I got to the garage, and my father was in the garage. And I announced, Dad, I am home. And I did exactly what you said. I stayed away from the bank of the river, Dad, and I'm home before the sun set, and look at my fish. And my father looked at my fish, and he said, Son, regarding the first 2, I want you to know, I know you did those things. And then his next words shocked me. He said, because I was watching you for 2 hours. And then my father said, and now I know that I can trust you with anything. You know, gentlemen, when I heard that, when my father said to me that I had passed, that he could trust me with anything, you know what that meant? That meant, Dad, give me more responsibility. Because having earned my dad's trust was such a precious commodity that you can give me anything and I will show you. Because of the love relationship and the trust. You see, if you want to be an encourager, give your children an opportunity to prove themselves trustworthy, because when they go through that exercise and they come out at the other end, then the only thing it does is just seals you guys even closer. And remember to do that. There will be times when you must do that. Number 6, as a father, this is another great one. Ladies, I want to make sure, listen ladies, look at me, look at my face. Make sure you write this down for your husband in case he misses it. This one is for dads. Fathers, you must learn to guard your tongue and your tone and learn to measure your response against the excitement on their face. Gentlemen, if there was ever a lesson that I wish I would learn, I had learned earlier, it was this one. In Acts chapter 8, Philip, by the power of God, is taken to a man, an Ethiopian treasurer, out in the desert. And he's there, and that man is what? Reading the scroll of Isaiah. And of course, as you remember that context, the Ethiopian treasurer did not know, what does this mean, he asked. Philip came. Philip's the one who answered. I wish I had a Philip in my life earlier. And in the truest sense, men, I want to be that Philip in your life, especially on this mandate. How many times I failed my own kids with this? I did not do very well when it came to guarding my tongue and my tone. I did not do well when it came to measuring my response against the excitement on their face. So many times our children will come to us, the dads, and they'll come with their treasures, they'll come with their discoveries. They are so excited. They just want to share it with the most important man in their life. And I remember the day when Jennifer came in, she found a pine cone, and it was a big pine cone for where we lived up in New Hampshire. And she came in and she was so excited, and she brought it to Dad, this trophy, and she put it on the kitchen table, and she said, Daddy, look at this pine cone, look at it. And I did. And what I saw was not what she saw. I saw sap. I saw ants. I saw grit. And I said, Jenny, get that off the table. Get it off the table before your mother sees it. Get it off. And I couldn't pull back those words. The joy, the smile, the expression on her face, gone. Nothing I could say now could pull it back. You see, in that moment, gentlemen, I did not measure my response against the excitement on her face. I failed. And I failed over and over again. I remember the time. Do you guys remember the time? I remember the time when perms were the big thing in our society. You know, women got perms. I mean, we like in the middle 80s, perms were the thing. Do you ladies remember the first time you got a perm? I mean, that was a new look. I remember the first time when our girls got a perm. I mean, all the kids at school were getting perms. And the only thing I know is that Anne-Marie told me, she says, we're going away. I don't know where she took the girls that Saturday morning. I just know they went away. And you know when you got your first perm, you know how excited you are that, you know, your straight hair is curly and you're bobbing it up and down. You look at every mirror. So it was with Amy and Jenny. And they're looking, oh, look at mine. Look, we got to show Daddy. Where is he? Okay, let's go find him. And so they went, oh, there he is. And Daddy, Daddy, what do you think? And I looked and I said something really dumb. Oh, does your mother know you did that? And then, of course, here comes Anne-Marie around the corner with her perm. Honey, how do you like my perm? And you know, you can't take that back. Here they are sharing the joy of the heart. And you know, men, the thing was, in two days, it just took me 2 days. I loved the perm. I would be disappointed. I would be disappointed when they went back to straight hair. It just took me 2 days, but I didn't guard my tongue and my tone. I didn't learn to measure my response against the excitement on their face. And you ladies, listen, moms, listen. You moms can help the case, all right? You can help the cause. Follow me on this, men. Just nod if you think this is right. Give us men, your husbands, a warning. Just a warning. You know, Anne-Marie learned that. She learned, Gary, the girls and I are going away this morning, and when we come back, there's going to be something different about us. Now, you know why we men need to know that, ladies? It's because we men do not have something you have. We men do not have the surprise gene. We don't have it. You ladies have a surprise gene. You know, you can handle anything. Someone gets the hair, oh, I love you. For us, we calculate it financially. Tell me it was free. Yeah. But I learned as my children would come back, and whether it be their hair was curled or whether they bring a pine cone, my children would give me another chance. And sometimes it was just, they would smile and I was smiling. I hope you like it, because I know in 2 days I'm going to like it. Oh, gentlemen, I wish a Philip came into my life earlier. I wish he told me what I'm telling you. I wish he gave me the direction that Anne-Marie and I, from our experience, is sharing with you. Let me continue on. Mandate number 7. Fathers, one of the greatest needs your children have is the need to be touched by you. You know, there's something very special and secure about Daddy's arms. Physical contact is not bound by time, it's not bound by age, and it's not bound by gender. Our children are never too old to be kissed, they're never too old to be hugged, they're never too old to be held. In the context of family, a gentle hand, a tender hug, a pat on the back, and a goodnight kiss all communicates intimacy in relationships. To hold and to be held communicates vulnerability. It communicates closeness that is reserved for trusting members of a family. I want you to know, in our family, Anne-Marie was the hugger. She came from a non-hugging family, but she vowed that when our family was going to develop, that we were going to be huggers, and we are. We hug in the morning, we hug at night, we hug when we go to bed, we hug before everyone goes out the door. That's just our family. It's part of our identity. It's part of who we are. And now that the grandchildren come in, we can't get enough hugs. We've got to hug them. We've got to hold them. In the course of our travels, we visit a lot of families. We have opportunity to talk to a lot of parents, and we're in their own homes, and it's sad because we know what's going on, but when we visit some of these homes, we find children starved for physical affection, and we know that because we're not in that house 5 minutes when that child is not on our lap. And we play with the child, and we talk to the child, but we're there to see the parents, and we put the child down, and a few moments later they're over to show us something else, and we spend a little more time, and we put them down, and then they're back on our lap, and it's okay, they don't have to show us anything. They just want to be there, which is telling us that this is a child that is simply saying, my mom and dad, they don't have time to hold me. And that troubles us, because we know that little boys and little girls need to be held by mom and dad. Listen, gentlemen, they need to be held by dad. You see, mom's arms are comforting, Daddy's arms are security. That's why your kids need to be held by you. Holding children provides more than just security. It meets special emotional needs that someday will be met when the Lord Himself brings that special person into their life. Fathers who fail to communicate love through touch leave behind yearning hearts that can be taken captive by anyone who's willing to give the attention. Gentlemen, here's my warning to you, being a father and a grandfather. When that happens, it's usually the wrong person who's going to give attention to your children. We've learned this so clearly. I remember the time that Anne-Marie and I, we did a week-long parenting conference, family conference down in the Dominican Republic. When the kids were like 16 and 17 and 18, they were in high school. We normally would never leave that long, but this one occasion was special, and we were gone. And we hadn't seen the kids all week long. So on Sunday night, the night before we were coming home, we couldn't wait. We called the girls, and we talked to the girls. And it was interesting because the girls got on the phone, the two phones, and they said, Dad, you know, when you get off the plane, the thing we want the most? We want a hug from you. And of course, you know, you're taken back a little bit by that comment because, of course, when you haven't seen a loved one, the first thing naturally is going to be a hug. But they said, Dad, no, you don't understand. You see, Dad, when you and Mom left on Tuesday, by Wednesday, we were sort of like feeling like we were missing something. And so we thought, well, it'd be nice just to have a hug from one of our girlfriends. And then by Thursday, we thought, well, maybe we could get a hug from a teacher. Well, Dad, by Friday, it was just like maybe one of the boys around school could give us a hug. I thought right away, no, Amy, honey, don't go to school tomorrow. Don't go to school. I'm coming home. Because there's a power in a father's touch. You got little girls, you need to hold them. And when they're middle years girls, you need to hold them. And dads, listen, any of you guys who have the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls, you know, the young ladies, they are beginning to blossom. Life is awkward sometimes for them. And Dad, you see them and you see that they're beginning to blossom slightly into their womanhood. And it's like you don't know what to do. It's like, well, honey, well, here, shake hands with Daddy. Good night. And you know what you're saying? You see, in their mind, although their body may be developing, their little hearts still belong to Daddy. They still need to be held. And when we sort of like don't know what to do with them, we are sending a very powerful signal that, well, things are changing and I can't love you the same way as I did. Don't do that to your children. Love them. Love them. My father's been home with the Lord since 1972. I would give anything to be held one more time by my dad. I remember, especially in those latter years, I remember every one of his great big bear hugs. To have one more. Now, gentlemen, listen. I am fearful of the number of fathers who still have time to give their children the gift of touch, but they don't. See, touch has memory. The more you hold your children, the greater the memory goes of comfort, joy, and security. Duty 8. Bear with me, fathers, bear with me. Let me plead my case for you only this one more time, because you only get one shot at being a father. So let me finish this presentation. Duty number 8. It's so important, because if you don't understand this, everything I've given you beforehand really doesn't matter. If you're going to build a trusting relationship with your children, it must be built on God's Word and not on man's wisdom. See, trust cannot be separated from truth. Jesus said that. Thy word is truth. All the practical helps that I have listed thus far will be for nothing if a father is like the foolish man who builds his house upon the sand. For when the storms of life come to pound on your relationship, will anything be left after it passes? The preservation of your family starts with your understanding of who God is and who He is in your life. It's His divine plan of salvation, and from salvation comes what we call sanctification, how you are to live. And from sanctification comes your ministry to your family, the strength of your family, the grace that God gives you to shepherd your family. Without biblical truth in the family, then your direction, your trust, has no meaning. It has no purpose. Parenting is a discipleship relationship where truth is passed on from one generation to another. And without truth, gentlemen, wherever you may be right now, and you're standing with God, and you're standing with the Lord, without truth, gentlemen, your children may believe you right into eternity, but it may not be the eternity with God. Here's a portrait of that possibility, a story that I think brings home the whole point. Rob and Jan were unable to have children until later in life. Jan came to the Lord shortly after they were married, but Rob remained a non-Christian but never hindered his wife's pursuit of God. It was only after much prayer that Jan was finally able to carry to term and bear a child. Rebecca was her name, and she was a beautiful little girl, so full of innocence and love. Rebecca brought a special joy to her mother and father, one that they thought was impossible to have. Yet as this little girl grew, conflict stirred in her heart. Intuitively, she knew there was a division between Mommy and Daddy that would one day force her to choose sides. Her mother shared faithfully with Rebecca the love of Jesus and her need to know him personally. Each night, Jan tucked her little girl in bed and whispered this little promise: Jesus will see you through the night, and Jesus will be here till the light. You can trust Jesus with your life, little girl. You can trust Jesus with your life. Rebecca's father equally offered his view of life. Mommy, he would say, believes in something that is not real. For Rebecca, can you touch God or see him? If there is really a God, you can trust your daddy. I would tell you. You can trust your dad because I will never tell you anything that is not true. Well, Rob came home early the day. He found Jan in tears, and he heard the doctor's report about her condition. Instantly, the drunkenness and intoxication of life itself had been overcome by the sobering thought of death. The sweet memories of life for Rob and Jan had turned into a nightmare. Then, on that day that the angels came to take Jan away, by her side was 7-year-old Rebecca. Already crushed in her heart by the thought of her mother's coming death, she heard one more time that all-familiar whisper, Rebecca, Jesus will see you through the night, and Jesus will be here till the light. You can trust Jesus with your life, little girl. You can trust Jesus with your life. Time, Rebecca, will not allow me to be with you, so I leave you with this hope. Jesus loves you, and someday you will have to decide to accept his love. Accept it, Rebecca, before the spirit of life leaves you. In that first year, Rebecca would repeatedly ask, Daddy, is Mommy in heaven with Jesus? Rebecca, Mommy believed in something that was not real. I loved your Mommy, but she's gone from us forever. Our hope is only in today, and you can trust your Daddy because I will never tell you anything that is not true. Rebecca hid away the words of her father and mother and pondered them daily. Who was she to believe? The special love for her mother and her deep love for her father caused turmoil in her little heart. Amazingly, it wasn't long after the second cold winter's winds blew across Jan's grave that the news came to Rob that Rebecca, too, would soon leave him. It was incurable. There was little time. And there was absolutely no hope. Rob did everything in those last months with Rebecca. He filled up his treasure chest full of life's memories as the clock of life ticked down for the only one now left in his life. As the end drew near, it was in those final minutes that this one little girl put life and destiny into its proper perspective for her father. She said boldly, Daddy, Mommy told me of Christ's love and his sacrifice for me, and that one day I would have to decide whose voice to follow. I have such little time left, and I need you now, Daddy, to direct me. You tell me there is no God or hope for loved ones to be reunited in Jesus, and I will go into eternity knowing that you would never tell me something that is not true. Being faced with the reality of his own aching heart, it was at that moment that Rob realized who was really speaking to him. Oh, Rebecca, we both stand at life's door. How can I say there is no God when I see his love through you? How can I say there is no God when my heart is calling out for him now? Rebecca, your mother lived in the peace I feel now. There is a God, and together you and I will know him. I know as you close your eyes on this day that Jesus will take you through the night and Jesus will be there until the light, and you can trust Jesus with your heart, little girl. And I can trust him with our life. You see, sometimes, gentlemen, fathers will see God through their children. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Our children are to see God through their fathers. What is the father's mandate? It is for fathers to rightly reflect the truth of God and to work on a trusting relationship with his children. That's what it's all about. Listen, men, listen. I will close with this. Your child will face countless disappointments in the future. That's what life is all about. There will be disappointment in friendship, disappointment in work relationships, disappointment in romantic entangles. These all provide opportunities for doubt. Your child's life will be filled with uncertainties, but you don't have to be one of them. Make sure your child has no reason to doubt you, who you are, as their dad. Are you worthy of your children's trust? Does he or she know that no matter how fearful life becomes, Dad will be there to love and accept and help guide? This is what it's all about, gentlemen. This is the Father's mandate. Remember this. You go home, and if your kids are in bed, don't touch them, but tomorrow morning you go and give them a great big hug, and then you make a covenant with the Lord that you will do everything you can possibly do to create within them an honest trust in your leadership. Do that, man. Do it.
是我看这个课程都让我非常感动，也回想到自己有很多的不足跟亏欠，不过感谢主，都还有机会，我相信我们都还有机会，不管孩子多大，都还可以，有很多事情都还不嫌迟，我们就一起来努力。我们来唱今天的回应诗歌《我主爱》。另外在座的这个姐妹们，请不要用过高的标准，用这课的标准来期待你的弟兄，这样我们压力会很大。只要把影片给他看就可以了，让他自己有感动来做就好了。有一份爱从天而来，比山高，比海深，测不透，摸不着，却看得见。因为有你，因为有我，甘心给用心爱，把心中这一份爱活出来。耶稣的爱激励我，敞开我的生命，让自己成为别人祝福。耶稣的爱点燃我心中熊熊爱我，我们一起向世界活出爱。爱从天而来，比山高，比海深，测不透，摸不着，却看得见。因为有你，因为有我，甘心给，用心爱，把心中这一份爱活出来。我们一起起立，一起来唱。起立，现场的起立，爱。 奉主的名祝福众弟兄姐妹，不管是父亲、母亲或是单身，都能够活出爱，活出爱，让周围的人被我们的爱所影响。来比山高，比海深，测不透，摸不着，却看得见。因为有你，因为有我，甘心给，用心爱，把心中这一份爱活出来。耶稣的爱激励我，敞开我的生命，让自己成为别人祝福。耶稣的爱点燃我心中熊爱我们一起向世界活出爱。敞开我的生命，让自己成为别人祝福。耶稣的爱点燃我心中熊爱我们一起向世界活出爱，我们一起向世界一起向世界活出爱。奉主的名祝福众弟兄姐妹，要领受天父上帝的父亲的慈爱，自己也要活出那爱来。也奉主的名祝福众弟兄姐妹，要有耶稣的指引陪伴，耶稣的爱与我们同在，以及圣灵的引导、圣灵的能力、圣灵的喜乐、圣灵的恩膏、圣灵的智慧，都在我们当中，以及圣灵的医治，都在我们的生命里面，直到我们见主面的日子。这样祝福奉耶稣的名，阿们。弟兄姐妹，今天聚会就到这里，感谢主，我们可以彼此在现场的弟兄姐妹，我们可以继续彼此交通。我们今天聚会就到这里啊。今天我们没有会后的聊天室，所以观看直播的弟兄姐妹，我们就没有这个聊天室。